So usually about a 2-minute delay usually on the live.
So it's streamed to YouTube.
All right. And that's our online video.
I expected Ken was gonna sign it for both. Oh,
He might be on his iPhone right there.
okay.
That might be him.
Rick's supposed to be coming.
Got 9 minutes.
Jason, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got 6 o'clock. Should we call the meeting to order?
Good.
10 of us.
If you guys can hear me, I can't hear you at all.
We can hear you.
We can hear you. You can't hear us?
Barely. Where's the microphone sitting? Right there on the end of the table?
It's right in front of me
Yeah.
right here.
Anybody else have problems hearing, or is it just Pingree?
Okay, well, if you guys can hear me,
I don't have any problem hearing.
All right. Pingree.
We have another one just come on.
what, Dalton?
Try turning up your phone volume on the side.
I've got it as loud as it'll go.
Coon Rapids internet for you.
Can't hear that.
That's your Coon Rapids internet for you.
Okay, how's that better? Or I can hear you. Okay, now I can hear you guys.
We can hear you.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second? All those in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposition? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Everybody had a chance to look that over? Is there a motion to approve the previous meeting?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposition, or any opposition? Motion carries. Item number 4 on the agenda, election of officers.
Currently, I believe it's Sheriff Pingree and Jim Bergman.
Nope.
No? Oh, Pat Fay. Oh, I'm sorry. Not anymore, huh? Okay, I'm a couple years behind.
You didn't miss a meeting. Yeah, I typed them, that's the sad thing.
I make a motion for them to retain their positions.
Are you doing that motion for both chairperson and vice chair?
Yes.
Perfect. We'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second, vote by acclamation.
What was that?
I'll second it and then vote by acclamation. So all you have to say is a yay or an
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposition? Motion carries. Item number 5, 21-22 budget review.
Alrighty. So you guys were provided copies of the preliminary budget in your packet. We'll go down to the bullet points here because it'll become important, and I'll show you where we've accounted for these things in the budget. So in the next fiscal year's budget, we have a couple of projects coming up that we need to take care of. The board will remember that in the lead up to the Essex radio project, we were squirreling away money within the 911 fund, not knowing what costs we may have to incur as it relates to the integration of various systems with the Essex project. And then we also knew that we had these other projects coming up, but we were kind of holding off to do anything until we knew how the dust was going to settle on the Essex project. So 2 things that are coming up in the next fiscal budget will be the comm center servers. There's many virtual servers that we run through running the comm center systems, but there's 2 physical boxes. They are, what are they, Dalton, about 5 years old?
Yeah, they're approaching end of life.
So they're approaching end of life, and we're going to need to budget to replace those in the next fiscal year. So that's been included in the budget. And then our 911 system is about 7 to 8 years old. But it's also a computer system with servers and things. And we need to look at replacing what we call the CPE, or the call processing equipment, for the comm center in the next budget year. And so we budgeted for those things. So with those items in mind, we'll go ahead and kind of go through, and I'll try to draw your attention to the budget. As you look at here, you have the actual ending budget from the previous budget year, for the current budget year, and then what we're budgeting for next budget year. On the revenue side, we continue to see a decline in wireline revenue, and so we've accounted for that, trying to estimate approximately what that decline looks like, the previous year's declines. And then we continue to see a little bit of growth in the wireline, or the wireless surcharge as well. So those are in 6 of the budget. And then we've accounted for various miscellaneous reimbursement. The board will remember from previous years that we get a pass through from the state after the completion of each budget year, but that pass through is an uncertain amount, so we never budget for that. But when it happens, we do account for it. And so that's why you'll find in line 9 that the amount in the budget for line 9 reflects a decrease for the next budget year, just because we don't know what that amount is going to be. If you go on to the next page, this is where we get to looking at expenditures. And much of the expenditures will be kind of remaining the same. One thing that we're going to talk about later is the continuation of the local telco fees that we pay to each telecommunications provider for dedicated lines. But we're going to have to continue to budget for those in the upcoming budget year. But I'm hopeful that we're going to get a resolution with the state to get those fees taken care of. But they're still working on it. We'll discuss that in more detail later. Thank you. That's line 8. So you'll see we've accounted for the Essex maintenance agreement in line 23, and then some additional ancillary charges as well, or things that might be expensed out of that line item. And so that's 113,000 estimated for the current budget year. That line item is currently being used for incidentals related to the project, such as we've used some of that money for control stations for fire departments because they weren't included in the project. So that's what that line item has been used for in the current budget year. But starting next budget year, 1 year after system acceptance, we'll have to start paying the annual maintenance fee. And so that's been accounted for. In the PSAP telephone equipment, we budgeted 17,000 for the call processing equipment replacement that I spoke about. And then in the other is where we budgeted money for the server replacement. We also have a budget amendment we'll discuss in a little bit. And so in line 28 there, you'll see in the current budget year, we have a higher estimate in that line. That's for a budget amendment we're going to have before the board that has to do with some other computer equipment that's due to be replaced in this current budget year that we didn't have in the budget before. So when everything kind of shakes out, you'll see that we're starting to spend down some of the money that we've accumulated in reserves. That is by design and by plan, and we knew this was going to happen. So I know it's kind of alarming to see that number going down, but it is something that was planned for and is expected. And so with the budget amendment approval for the current budget year, the amount of money that we will carry over to the next budget year will be $216,899 as an estimate, and then we'll be down to 130,279 at the end of the next budget year. So I'm still comfortable, very comfortable with that number, especially as we can discuss with this call processing equipment replacement with a shared services model with the state. We would no longer maintain the servers locally. The servers would get maintained at the state, would be housed at the state. We would be kind of a satellite location off of the state servers. And that reduces our equipment liability, so to speak, quite a bit. So the failure of equipment wouldn't be as much on us when it comes to that. And we've got maintenance agreements for all the radio stuff. So again, I feel comfortable with that number. So any questions on any of that? I know it's kind of a lot of information. The other pages included here are just what prints out as part of the process here. So yeah. So used for something else. So any questions on any of that presented with the budget or any concerns?
What's next? We need to set a public hearing date?
Correct. So if the, if the budget looks acceptable, well, I guess either way, we need to set a public hearing date. And, we'd probably be looking at another Wednesday. The Wednesday meeting tends to work for everybody. It seems to this time. So we'd probably be looking at a Wednesday meeting into February.
No, that'd be done by February 28th.
I see you've already got it down on yours for the 17th,
Yeah, I just picked a date because I couldn't get it.
which is a
straight
Wednesday night, so.
without a day.
We need to make sure we got enough time to get it published as
I
well.
know.
Okay.
10 to 20 days, that's why I picked the 17th.
Okay.
Because tomorrow's the 28th.
Okay.
The 24th, it just has to be done by that Friday.
Because the 28th is on a Sunday, so
Yeah.
technically have to be done by the 26th.
It's the middle of March when they're due, right?
No, mine, February 28th.
Oh, okay.
So yes,
Yeah. So I don't care, so keep it the 24th, because now we got the Zoom capability, so as long as, we get the forum on the
well,
Zoom.
in case of snow, we probably should stay with the 17th, just in case. Okay. We have to move it.
Yeah, we just have to get them to the newspaper by Monday.
Well, is that, is are you taking into account their schedule on printing and what their deadlines are? Because
Yeah.
they've changed. They're no longer weekly or every day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, or Friday for Tuesday, Monday for Friday,
Okay.
Tuesday.
Okay.
You have technically from Wednesday at noon for Friday, then we still have next week. too.
Okay. I just know, that publication date is
I know.
important.
10 to 20 days.
Okay.
Okay.
So the recommendation is February 17th, Chairman.
Ash Wednesday. Anybody have issues with that? You want to go to 24th? I don't care.
We don't need to vote on the day, do we? Just pick it?
Just pick it.
17th.
We going with the 17th?
I'm. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Move on to item number 6, 2021 budget amendment.
Okay, before you, you have a document entitled Sands Storage Upgrade Quotes. This is for the network storage of the computer system that runs all of everything that's not a radio or the phone system for the comm center. So the in-house computer network. Everything that's not a computer, one of those two systems is part of this other computer system. And the storage that we have in there is, Dalton, we wouldn't say it was full, but it no longer has the high availability capabilities. So
Means it doesn't have redundancy pretty much. So the servers are getting old enough where they don't have enough power to rely on each other. So if one were to fail, we don't have a true redundancy right now. So that at that point, we'd be dead. So what we're trying to avoid is if we do have some sort of hardware failure like that, it'll be seamless. It'll just push over to the next server like it was originally when the server was first installed.
So the high availability makes it so that if one physical box of the server fails, it fails over. And the storage is what runs everything. There's not enough storage available anymore to allow that high availability to take place. So if we had a failover, we've got some servers that are critical and some are less critical. And we're getting by okay, but it's a project that's right for the picking. We need to get it done. And so Dalton and I sought out some quotes in order to replace this. And one of the things that frustrates me with IT quotes is we never get an apples to apples comparison. They want to kind of offer their own solution and stuff. And but we got Arion, who is the vendor that the county most often deals with all their IT stuff, to provide us a quote. And we saw one from RTI, and we asked that the hardware be similar, and provided them the specs that we expected the hardware to meet. And, so this is what we came down with. The full quotes were provided for everybody, and I've got copies here for anybody in the room that wants to look at them. But basically, we have the Arion quote coming in as broken down with a total of 75,790. RTI, their preferred quote or their comparable quote to the equipment that we provided them is the HP Nimble. That was the one that they told us would fit our needs best, and that was 74,362. And even though we didn't ask for it, they provided us a second quote for the HP MSA servers that comes in at $60,000. So Dalton and I have reviewed the quotes, and the board might remember that RTI was our vendor on the original server install project, and we had some discussions with them about the work that was completed during the server install. Their method of the install is kind of they bring the stuff in, they set it up, they get things going for the IT department, and then they want to hand it off and let the IT department finish things out. And what happened with the server install was Louis Grody ended up spending, I think, a couple of weeks after they did the install in order to get everything up to speed. We asked for a cheap turnkey solution, but they still provide us basically a statement of work that involves migrating some of the data and then having IT do the rest. And we're not really happy with that. And so I think that's probably some of the difference that we see in the statement of work or the labor costs that are involved. And I'll let you,
Jason.
your preference. Yeah.
I was just going to say, just ask Dalton. I think everybody would be on board. He's the one that's got to deal with this thing on a day-to-day basis. Which one would he like to see?
I mean, personally, I want to see it. We don't want to get the system all set up and then have to spend 2 weeks here trying to get it up. And technical issues. We don't want to throw a bunch of money at something. Just got to work on it. Whereas when Arion comes in, they hand me everything and it's done. It's done right. They worked with us before. We passed these projects.
I'd second all of that. Through working with Arion, Carl is with IT, all of our experiences have been good with them. And, the price that IT department charges the comm center or 911 for IT is pretty darn favorable because they don't pass any of those costs on to us. So if what they want is Arion, this is recommended. That's what we do.
Is this something we vote on to go with the Arion, or just set it for a public hearing date on the 17th?
Well, I would like us to kind of vote now to decide if that's the direction we want to go. We're going to approve that quote, and then we can move forward with the budget amendment to.
Okay. Is there a motion on the floor to pick one of these three storage devices?
I'll make a motion for Arion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor of the Arion, made by Dell for $75,790.62, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? That motion carries. Do we need to still need to set a public hearing date on that, Jason? Do you think?
Correct. I would set the public hearing date, and it makes sense to make it the same date as the other one.
Let's do it for the 17th then.
We'll be here for both of them.
New business, item number 7.
Essex Network Management Terminal and Provisioning Manager. So one thing that was not included in the project was a network management terminal for our dispatch site. That's basically a PC that allows us to have access into parts of the Essex network in order for us to maintain our radios and our talk groups within the system, locally rather than asking the state to do it. So that when there needs to be changes done, we can log in, or I can log in and take care of those things and do them. In order to kind of feel out the idea of us obtaining this terminal, a week or two ago, I attended a training over in Boone for system admin training where they went through this program. With us, there's several licenses that can be purchased along with it. The one license and the terminal that I requested a quote for was just the provisioning manager. The suite has other capabilities that I don't think you really need. And so, as it is with these sorts of things, the license is a little spending, but we've been looking at cost of $14,366 after they give us a discount. That's money that we've got budgeted in that kind of contingency line item already for this year, in order to cover things that came up like this. And so,
Is this a one-time deal?
yeah, it's going to increase. There'll be a little bit of an increase to the annual maintenance, because anytime you add some software, they're going, and a piece of hardware with the computer.
But basically,
add that to
the 14,000 that we're talking about is for one time.
Pretty much, like I said, it's going to make a small increase.
Yeah, I understand, but I
But
mean,
after we own it, then we'll pay that maintenance on it.
Right. What I was getting at is we're not paying 14,000 every year for it.
No.
Okay.
No. It'll be a much smaller,
Okay.
minor increase to the expense on the.
What does it have you do again? Like, what's the point of that?
So all of the radios and all of the talk groups and the settings for those things are all contained in the system core at the state. And rather than having to call the state, ask them to make changes to our radios, say, like right now, the sheriff's car has got a radio in it that doesn't match its number. We need to program the radio to fix that. We also need to program the system to fix that. We can already program the radio in-house to do that, but we have to get the state involved in order to change the radio to do that. And with the network management terminal and the software, I can log into my desk and I can make those changes rather than relying on the state. So it's a little cumbersome with the state. They're responsive, but there's some back and forth, and it just takes time, to get them to make the changes.
So Motorola encourages all counties to be able to learn and do that themselves.
I wouldn't say that, no. I would say that we have a tendency to try to do some stuff in-house. And so, some counties find it useful to have something like that, like Boone County, us. Other counties may not desire to have that functionality or want to do that in-house.
But if you want to take it on and learn it,
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've already been through the training to use it. It was kind of a fact-finding mission to go to the training so that I could know whether or not I wanted to recommend that I spend money on it, because I wasn't sure until actually sitting down and seeing the software and participating in the training to know what we can do and what we can't do. I do think it would be good for us to have in order just to keep that management type stuff in-house. So if the board,
Require a vote, does it?
but
What
yeah,
was that? Yes, it does. Okay. Is there a motion to approve this system to program the radios?
network management terminal,
What?
I'll make a motion.
the network management terminal.
There you go.
Dan,
Okay, heard we have a motion. Is there a second?
Yeah.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition? Motion carried. Number 8, old business.
Okay. So the board may remember that we discussed in the past the wireless to wireline migration. A number of wrenches were thrown in the works and halted that project on a statewide level a couple of different times. They have been moving forward with it. Many other PSAPs have migrated. We're kind of about in the middle of the field. They haven't really run into any issues. Things are going well with that. And we are scheduled to do that migration on February 9th. So what that does is it takes, right now we have 2 911 basically concurrent systems, one for wireless calls that is more IP based, and then one that's wire line calls that is copper based or traditional telephone based. And this is taking those traditional 911 calls and putting them onto the IP based network. And so just want to let the board know that that project is moving forward and scheduled for February 9th. Related to that, we were told that that $36,000 that we budget every year to pay local telcos was supposed to go away once this happened. And that's not happening yet.
Surprise.
However, the state 911 program, as well as the FCC's opinion, is that telcos actually shouldn't be charging anybody for 911. They're required to provide the service per FCC regulations. And so there's at least one PSAP of the state that has just started to reduce the pay on their own volition. They believe they have standing to do so. And they have the backing of the county attorney. I'm not there yet. I've had numerous conversations with the state 911 program manager about it. And he agrees that we should not be paying fees anymore and they should go away. And they're working to discuss that with the telcos, as well as working through the state attorney general's office to kind of come up with a statewide solution or address this kind of on a statewide level rather than every PSAP doing it on their own one-off. The 911 program manager is somebody I've worked with for a long time at the state, and he's a person of his word. I never found him to be misleading. And so I think that is going to be a situation that's going to resolve itself at some point, but we're not to the point where we're just telling people that we're not going to pay it. But they're looking at how they can resolve that. The state was under the impression when they got the quote for the wireline to wireless migration that was going to be an all-encompassing quote. So there's a couple of different, I guess, avenues they're looking to address this issue. But it was not money that we had planned to have in the budget, that we're going to continue to have in the budget, at least for the next budget year. And hopefully that gets resolved. So I don't know if anybody's got any questions about that, but that's kind of where that sits. I'm continuing to do what I can to look at it. There's also, the possibility of legislation that could address this as well. And if that happens, as a APCO and NENA legislative liaison with our lobbyists, I can assure you that APCO and NENA will be behind that legislation pretty hard. Should it come to the light of day. So, any questions?
Sounds good. Let's move on to the Essex update.
Project has taken longer than expected. A number of delays related to COVID has caused materials not to ship. The last of those items are in transit. We have the last tower work is scheduled to take place next week, provided the weather cooperates. That'll be done in Manning. The tower, the antenna work for the transmit and receive antennas are done at the other 2 sites. The equipment is inside of the shelters, hasn't been wired up yet. that is also scheduled to start to happen next week. And then the final thing to drop will be the microwave. That's looking like middle of February is when that's scheduled. So microwave dishes will go on the towers and then the network up and running. And I just talked to the program or the project manager earlier today, and they're scheduling coverage testing for the beginning of March. They'll start to do the objective coverage testing with the radios and drive around, test the signal everywhere in the county to make sure they're meeting the contractual obligations, and we'll get a report that has the results of that once that's complete. So we'll also be looking to do the trainer with some people from all of the different public safety services that we'll invite to come in and assist with training. And then we'll start to schedule the trainings to take place after the acceptance testing. And once we do the training for a department, we'll bring the portables for that department and train on them, and then we'll leave them in that department.
Jason, I have a question on that.
Yeah.
When they do the acceptance testing, will somebody from our agency be able to go with them? And
Absolutely.
okay, perfect.
As a matter of fact, they may even require us to provide a vehicle to drive them around.
Okay.
They like a marked patrol car, not something we discussed, but I think it'd be too big an issue. They like a marked patrol car just so that when people see a vehicle driving around in funny places, they're not, calling it in or chasing them off with a shotgun or stuff like that. So,
Sounds good.
yeah, we can sit there and watch it happen. So, yep. So that's kind of where all that stuff is at.
So what's their ETA if they think we're turnkey working?
Well, the acceptance testing will be done after it's all on air, and then we've got radio program that has to be done for law enforcement, as well as some installations, repeaters in the deputies' cars and things like that need to be completed. And so, a few months. I've quit making predictions on when we're going to.
You're not going out on that limb.
I just, it's going to happen. It needs to happen in the right time, and we need to, make sure that we're ready for it. And so, definitely in 2020, I feel safe saying that here in January.
That's confidence.
Anybody have any questions on the radio update?
I just was going to add, over the weekend, I was on a training deal, and we were using the new digital handheld radios, and the clarity is very good. So, but we were not great distance apart, but I was very impressed with the radio system, the way it worked.
Yeah, we've been taking the handheld out and testing it around the county, and it's worked very well.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, it's been a long time since we met. So one thing that has changed that I don't think I reported the group on is that the Glidden-Ralston school buses have transitioned over to Essex radio. So we've given them some talk groups to use. And since the beginning of the year, they've been using Essex in the buses. And I think the principal's been using the handheld inside the building to good effect. So that's been positive. And Manning IPM has also purchased radios for their buses. I don't know where they're at on their install, but I haven't had communication with them lately.
And Carol put something in, if they're working, I thought he talked to you about this.
Not.
What they had can then get.
Yeah, I haven't talked to him recently about it. It's been a long time since we've discussed it, but there's many options to do for the buses. And here too, you guys can take this back to your public works agencies and things like that. Anybody that's eligible, public works or public utilities, school buses, anybody of a public safety or public service basis is probably eligible to go on. And, you know, I kind of liken it to the state has built the major highways. The county now with the Essex project has come in and built the county roads and the streets to drive on. And now locals just have to buy the car, or in this case, the radio, to drive on those streets. So you know, it's something that there's some capacity there. And the benefit is to us is we have the buses on, and if we have a mass evacuation event or something, well, we've got 8 buses or 6 buses sitting over in Glidden. We can call in, and they're on a shared radio system with public safety. So,
One question for you, Dave.
sure.
When this new system gets up and running, what about the old radios? Are they junk, or will you still be able to hear on them, or?
We're gonna recycle. I mean, it's not
So
gonna-
they're worthless. They're,
not worthless. They're maybe worthless. They're worth
well,
something
I
to somebody.
understand that, but you won't be able to hear nothing. That system's gonna go down, go completely away.
You could, right, you could monitor the page on one of those radios. You could monitor local or neighboring county.
I have some members or some people on the department that have old radios, and they basically use them for like a pager, for listening. Will they still work for that?
Yeah, they still will. I don't know how much radio traffic they're gonna hear, but they would hear the pages.
Okay.
So we have to work with the text to see what we can do about passing the audio between the pagers and the talk groups. And there's some nuances that are involved with that, but
Training, are you gonna go county or department, city department, like?
Yeah.
go to something,
Yeah, I think-
so that you can get all
I think that's
of
what
them?
I think what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna probably, have probably 3 weeks of most of my evenings being taken up by doing trainings, and then we'll have other people coming in to be assistant instructors. And then those people will have attended the training class that I'll do through the training company that we're using. And then, if Pat can't make the Glidden meeting, but he can go over to Ralston, or he can go over to Carroll for that meeting. It doesn't have to be just the members from that department. So that we want every responder in the county to go through this training, because there's, things are changing, and we have to know how to run the radios and what the new kind of paradigm is for the communications. There's some things that have to change.
Sounds good. Any other questions for Jason on the new radio system? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition? Everybody have a great evening.
Hey.
Sorry. EMA,
I don't have a packet for EMA.
it was, just keep going in the packet,
It's all in one packet.
all in one packet.
Okay, what time is it? We'll call the EMA meeting to order.
41.
Hang on here, I'm looking. Okay, approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make that motion.
Second?
Yeah.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition? Motion carried. Approval of the minutes from February 12th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
All you guys. Nobody's turned up tonight.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition? Motion carries. Number 4, election of officers. Chair and vice chair.
Currently the same, Pingree and Pat Fay.
Is there a second to that?
No, I'm just telling the group that it's the same as 911. You.
Okay, gotcha.
I'll make a motion that the officers stay the same.
Second?
Yeah.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition?
Sure, I did it when you were.
Motion carries. Number 5, the 21-22 budget review. Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, mine's 4 pages. We can look at the. Doesn't matter. The first one just talks about the county contribution and the different revenues. So line 1, my beginning balance starting in July 1 was $28,077. The beginning balance is down because we had that big drone purchase and we too were spending down some of the reserve money. So the county this year is contributing $28,000 with hazmat reimbursement as well, $31,000. We did get the $18,000, go in the middle column though for this year. So you start with that first column for the beginning fund balance, but then you go to the middle column. So county's contributing right at $27,976. The hazmat reimbursement as well is going to stay the same all 3 years. We got the federal grant of $18,130, and then line number 8 tells you that there's a new grant, the EMPG 2020 supplemental. So with everything happening COVID, they did an additional grant, and you could ask the state if you wanted to match the expenses. And I was only one of 6 counties that asked the state to match our expenses. So they said that that was very smart to do because it doubled the grant. So instead of getting $5,600, we got $11,812 because the state matched us. I don't know. I have a miscellaneous reimbursement of $1,180. There was a fundraiser in Coon Rapids. After the duratio and after all of COVID, they did a car show at Midway Ford and it yielded $830. So they gave it to me just to help pay for PPE or whatever, it's just in there. And then one of the entities bought masks back from us, so that's my miscellaneous revenue. So the revenues are going to be roughly the same as they have in the past, except it was higher between column to the left and column to the right by that $11,000 because we had that bonus money. So the next grant is going to be right around that $18,000 again. You go to the expenses column. There were more expenses this year, but Courtney had to move all of the stuff in 2 different ways. So she has to put stuff into the EMPG column so we get paid that. And then also we had to move the 3rd quarter into the supplemental to be able to get that $11,000 back. So just for the sake of understanding the budget, there were additional expenses, but with them we got the additional $11,000 revenue. So I just left the numbers as estimated actual because it was just way too complicated with quarter 1 and 2 went in EMPG 1, quarter 3 went into EMPG supplemental, and then quarter 4 wasn't used. So to make the budget for next year, I just took the salary times and it's an hourly rate, it's not a salary, times the 2.5% to get the FICA and the IFRS line 5 and 6. It's subtotals similar, just like line 11. I left the vehicle maintenance, office supplies, minor equipment, tools the same. You go down to line 19, you'll see that last year we spent that $23,000. That was the drone purchase. So then we don't have that again. That's why those numbers go back down. All the numbers on the right-hand side remain the same. There wasn't much education and training this year, but we spent differently on the COVID projects. Hazmat remains the same, line 44. I am responding. Jason decided to pay 100% of that. So that's the savings to this budget of $24.65. So the budget is actually down based on taking that $24.65 out. So go down to the bottom. The budget in the middle is this year $77,700. And then the proposed budget for next year is $75,868. So it's mainly the difference of taking out the I am responding. So the page that Dean always likes is the 3 of 4 page that shows what the county contribution would be, which would be right at like $26,644. And they also kick in the hazmat reimbursement for the total budget of the $75,868, which is down from last year. And if we have any extra supplemental, it'll just go in there. But we're only sitting on around $20,000. So we don't have much to reserve. We don't need anything, so.
No.
Range repair takes care of the Tahoe, and I think it has 14,000 miles on it. It's been driven the most it ever has because I have to go and pick up the PPE in Des Moines now, so.
Probably the best thing for it, to drive it once. Good for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a 2017 and it has 14,000 miles, so the mileage is really low. No need to do anything. So that's the budget in a nutshell.
Sounds good. Are there any questions for Sarah? If not, let's set this for a public hearing date.
Same date, 2/17/21.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So new business, I'm just gonna send an email out so that I know who every city's mayor is, if there were any changes to that. And then the designee, just so that we have that on file. Do you still have to submit a thing for 911?
I do, but
Okay.
I change it.
So I'll just send that out. At the meeting last year, we were gonna get signatures from everybody. I think we had weather last year, so there was only 5 or 6 people present, and then we had other people that had called in. I don't think they're gonna audit anything like that, but eventually we have to get the bylaws document signatures, which we've been trying to get for several years. Every time we have a meeting, we just kind of collect them. So we'll see who shows up with elected officials to sign that at the next meeting. Otherwise, probably just email it out, have people sign it, scan it back in, and even if I have 14 different pages of signatures, I'll just keep them on file for auditing purposes to get the signature. So the COVID-19 summary update. Things have been the busiest that they ever have for me in emergency management. We've been busy before, but when the shutdown happened in March, the school was also shut down as well. So it worked for me to be able to really do both and really help with public health and the COVID. The county also then took on contact tracing because when all of this happened, August, September, public health was kind of keeping up on it, but then when everything opened back up with the schools and stuff, it was a huge shift in number of cases. We were seeing way more cases. So it was brought up that the county would support the public health efforts. So myself got trained as a contact tracer. Megan Owen with the county got trained. Carrie Percy got trained. And then we also hired some part-time people. We hired AJ Streck. We hired Marcia Schiffer, who retired from public health. And then we hired a lady named Charlotte. So between the 8 of us, and then we also had 9 school nurses doing the contact tracing. At one point, there were 17 of us in the county doing the contact tracing. We did lose one of our people. Charlotte's got a full-time job because how do you hire people when we have no idea how long this is gonna last. We have no idea how many pieces there's gonna be every day. So everybody just kind of had to pitch in and learn how to do that. And I'm happy to say that today we only had one name on the list. That is the first time that has happened since basically July, August, because normally there was 2 or 3 people working on it full-time daily up until last week, and then we lost Charlotte. We had a meeting within the coalition. The coalition meets about every other week, and we're discussing everything as to if we thought we needed to hire or replace that person. I said between me doing it after work, Megan doing it after work, JJ dabbling with it during the day, the 2 public health people are out, they're no longer doing it because they're focusing on the vaccine clinics. I thought we could keep it covered, so, but with only one today, JJ did the one and then went back, and then just, people either want to talk to you or they don't want to talk to you, so we're just doing the part in the county supporting our public health workers. So, Kemper also sent out an update today, and this is the first day in an entire semester plus 10 days. 0 cases, so things are moving in the right direction, I hope. I know we're all COVID burnt out. Sarah requested an email today so that we can get that sent out to all the fire departments to start collecting numbers of number of people that want to get vaccinated. Problem with that, we were talking about this before, there's a lot of people in the 1B category, as well as the federal government clumping all people 65 and older. So in my opinion, it's gonna have to be a decision made by the Board of Health, because the governor talked today, they too are like, whoa, we're going based on the IDAX information. However, you have a whole pool of 65 and up people that want to get the vaccine. Then you have a whole pool of public safety. I don't know, there's like 6 categories of people: agriculture, food service workers, nursing home. I mean, there's just a ton of people in the 1B category. So then if Carroll County only gets 100, but we have 500 people in the 1B list that's looking to get vaccinated, how do you pick the 100 that are going to get it and the 400 that are going to wait? So the basic problem they're having is allocation. We're just not getting very much. So people hear on the news, they see on the news that all these people are getting vaccinated. Iowa, for some reason, is 46th in the nation for getting allocation. It's not even based on population. I have no idea why we're in the bottom 5. And it's frustrating. I know public health is getting a lot of frustrating calls. They reached out to the county today to have Dalton and myself start putting updates out there. We're going to be using the Alert Iowa system. There's no need to send out messages right now because we have no vaccines to administer. There's, like Jason said, Walgreens just announced, but Walgreens is going to be doing the residents inside the nursing home. So I don't know. I'm glad I'm support on this and not number 1 in charge, because I'm just supporting what public health needs. I'm the PPE getter. I have to go to Des Moines to get that. So we've just been kind of combining trips. So I only have to maybe go once a month. That's what it's been so far. It's been nice. So anyway, that's COVID. Any questions?
Sarah?
Yeah.
I'll just add this. There's a preliminary discussion on possibly hiring retired nurses to help administer the vaccine process. If and when it would kick up to, we could get substantial amounts of doses of vaccine, that the public health could become overwhelmed. So it's kind of similar to what we did with the contact tracing.
So we also talked, if we get to the point where we start getting, because I mean, the initial conversation was that we were going to get 700 or 800 and then every single week, but it was more like 400, and then they gave 100, and then skipped a week and 100. Well, if you're only getting 100 doses every 2 weeks, they just have the list that they're working off of, so we haven't had that mass shipment yet. We did talk about, because there's school personnel in there, so if they did get a big shipment too, that they would pick like a no school day, which would be February 15th, and then they would be able to utilize the nurses as well. So we had that discussion on Friday, but we're doing a lot of planning, but the allocation just isn't there yet, but that's good to know.
Sounds good. Old business?
Just talk about the signatures, and I continue to have every other week or monthly meetings forward. So just busy.
Any questions for Sarah about anything she went over? I know it was pretty fast. Sorry I skipped you, Sarah, on this. I gleaned over your
It's
stuff
okay.
packet.
So how are they going to, if that is the case, you have 500 signed up and you get 100 doses, you don't just draw a name out of the hat, or?
That's why I think they're pushing it on Board of Health. They're pushing on somebody to make a decision because they couldn't administer anything. And then Audubon County started with 1B. So like teachers and other public safety people were getting it. And then they were really getting anger calls, like, why are these teachers getting it? Because nobody was supposed to move to 1B without 1A done. So if Audubon had extra doses, they should have sent it back to Polk County. So they read the email wrong. And then it was like,
Going to be
yeah. So, I mean, there's jot forms and sign up forms, but if 500 people sign up and they only get 100 doses.
Well, yeah,
they're gonna
then
have to
I,
have-
like I said, you're back to
Yes,
drawing a name out of the hat.
yes. So, and then if you're watching the news, there was something with the syringe, like the syringe would get all the way to the back. They were supposed to get 11 doses out of every vial, and they were only getting 10. So then it was actually shorting. So then, like, I believe it was 5 people in Manning that weren't going to be able to get the second dose. So then, out of the 85 people, they were going to tell 5 people, got the wrong syringes. So there was talk of that. I saw that on the news that they're going to now send out the right syringes to get the 11th dose. Because again, you got 85 people in Manning, and then you're going to tell, how do you pick 80 people? Well, sorry, you 5, you had the wrong syringes. So yeah, I am glad I am second chair to this and not first chair. But not on our people's part, on just,
The whole
The
system,
system.
I mean, they're not unprecedented, so what,
Everybody's learning as you go.
yeah. That'd be expensive.
so we just need a motion to adjourn.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yep.
Yep.
All those in favor, say aye.
All right.
Hey.
Opposition, motion carries. Okay, have a good night, everybody. This time for real.
Thank you.